My dear brothers and sisters, let us pause for just a moment to remember that we are not here by chance. We were not placed on this earth merely to breathe, to eat, to sleep, to work, and die. No, we were placed here, formed in the dark places of the womb, crafted by the hands of a holy Creator, to carry salt, to be salt, to preserve the goodness of God in a world so determined to spoil. Now you may ask me, why salt, Miss Maya? Why not gold? Why not the cedar of Lebanon or the honey of Canaan's land? But I tell you, it is not by accident that God chose salt. When God chose salt, he did not simply choose a mineral. No, he chose a message. He chose a metaphor. He chose a mirror to show us who we are. Salt, beloved, is not loud. It does not bang on the table and demand to be known. It does not raise its voice in a crowd. It does not wrap itself in silk or bathe in perfume. But once it enters the room, my Lord, it changes everything. You may not see it, but you taste it. You feel it. You know when it's there, and you most certainly know when it's not. You see, God in all his infinite wisdom looked across the fabric of creation, across the stars, the seas, the cedar trees, the lilies of the valley, and when he chose a symbol to describe you as child, his beloved, his keeper of promise, he chose salt. Not gold, not silver, not oil or fire, but salt, because gold may glitter, but it can't flavor a thing. Silver may shine, but it cannot preserve what is dying. Oil may anoint, but it will spoil if left unguarded. Fire may warm or burn, but it cannot last in water.
But salt, oh my salt, salt holds
steady. Salt enters the storm and stays intact. Salt endures. Salt has no need to boast because it knows its worth. That is the quiet confidence God has placed within you. You are not made to chase applause. You are not shaped to be validated by the crowd. You were formed to change the environment, to enter a room and shift the atmosphere. You were made to preserve what is holy and season what has gone bland. You, child of the Most High, were created with purpose in your bones. Now I know life can try to teach you otherwise. Life can make you feel small, invisible, discarded like a grain of sand beneath someone's shoe. But hear me. Sugar, there is a difference between sand and salt. Sand is the dust of what has been broken. Salt is the essence of what preserves. And God didn't call you dust. He didn't call you dirt. He called you salt. Salt speaks of identity, of sacred identity. You don't become salt by pretending, by performing, or by pleasing. You are salt because God said so, and what God says is. He did not make a mistake when he formed you in the quiet places of the womb. He did not blink or hesitate when he called you worthy. You were wrapped in glory before you ever took your first breath. You were born with flavor, baby. The world may try to dilute it, water it down with fear and doubt and shame. But the truth of who you are is divine. Heaven's fingerprint is upon you, and you don't have to be famous to be powerful. You don't have to be loud to be effective. Just as a pinch of salt flavors a whole pot, so too does your presence carry weight. Your prayers, your love, your strength, they shift generations. Do you know what salt does when it touches something lifeless? It preserves it. Do you know what it does when it encounters something bitter? It balances it. And that is what you do. You are the balance in your family. You are the preservation in your community. You are the one God placed to bring life to what was fading. You are the seasoning in a world that's grown numb. Salt does not disappear. No, darling. It dissolves to become part of the whole. It humbles itself to blend into the meal, but its presence cannot be denied. That is divine humility. That is sacred strength. You don't need to be seen to be significant. You just need to be who God called you to be. But here's the thing. Salt must be pure to be powerful. You cannot carry bitterness in your soul and expect to preserve others. You cannot walk around jealous and angry and expect to sweeten the world. God did not call you to be corrupted salt. He called you to be clean, to be whole, to be holy. That's why life presses you, why trials squeeze you. Not to destroy you, but to purify you. To refine your flavor, so that what you offer is honest and healing. There's a reason salt was used in offerings, child. It wasn't just a spice, it was sacred. It symbolized covenant, loyalty, purity. So when you walk through fire and come out stronger, you are salt. When you hold your tongue and choose peace instead of retaliation, you are salt. When you forgive when you have every reason not to, you are salt. And when you keep showing up day after day in a world that tries to ignore your worth, you are salt. You are chosen. You are holy. You know, people try to tell you who you are. They try to rename you, redefine you, reshape you. But they didn't form you in the dark. They didn't anoint you before birth. They didn't hold your tears in their bottle or sing over you in the night. God did. And he said, "You are the salt of the earth." That means you have value even when no one else sees it. That means you have purpose even when your paycheck says otherwise. That means your identity is rooted in something eternal, not something that fades with time. You are not defined by your mistakes. You are not shaped by your scars. You are flavor. You are preservation. You are light wrapped in flesh. So don't go trying to be sugar when God made you salt. Don't try to sweeten yourself to fit in with the crowd. Don't dim your strength or dilute your faith just to be liked. Be salt. Be bold. Be real. Be holy. Because when the world grows cold and flavorless and lost, it will be the salt that is remembered. It will be the salt that saves the day. And let me say this. Salt may sting a wound, but that sting brings healing. You may speak a hard truth. You may love with a firmness the world is not ready for. But don't let that stop you. Love anyway. Speak anyway. Heal anyway. Preserve anyway. Because your salt, your sacred salt, is exactly what this world needs. God didn't choose salt by accident. He chose it to show you that something simple can still be sacred. Something quiet can still be powerful. Something unseen can still be everything. He chose salt because he knew that you too would be overlooked, underestimated, and unseen. But he also knew, that you would last, that you would endure, that you would flavor the very world that tried to forget you. So stand tall, child of God, season the earth, speak the truth, preserve the goodness, heal the wounds, and walk boldly in the knowledge that your identity is not in what you do, but in who you are. You are salt, you are chosen, you are blessed, and baby, you were made to last. When we speak of salt, beloved, we are not merely speaking of flavor or function. We are speaking of covenant. We are speaking of promise. We are speaking of the ancient agreements sealed not with ink but with intention, not with paper but with purity. Salt, in its simplicity, carries the weight of eternity. In the olden days, when men came together in holy agreement, when they said, "This is sacred, this is lasting, this is true," they didn't shake hands or sign contracts. No, child, they shared salt. They broke bread. They ate together. Because to share salt was to say, you and I are bound. Our word will not crumble. Our hearts will not change. Salt does not spoil, you see. It cannot rot. And that is why God chose it to represent the kind of relationship he wants with us. Not one that fades with the seasons or sours with hardship, but one that endures. God does not court us with sweet words and then abandon us in the cold. He does not pursue us like a passing fancy. No, he covenants with us. And he says, "I will be your God, and you will be my people. I will not leave you nor forsake you. I will be with you even unto the end." That's not just affection. That's commitment. That's salt. And isn't that what we long for? A love that stays. A promise that does not break under pressure. Oh, we live in a time where people run from vows. We live in a world that says commitment is optional and loyalty is conditional. But God's love, God's promise. It is not dictated by emotion or circumstance. It is rooted in covenant. Think back to the sacrifices of old. When the Israelites brought their offerings to the altar, they did not present them dry. No, they sprinkled them with salt. God commanded it. Every grain represented a holy bond. Every crystal a whisper from heaven saying, I am still with you. I still choose you. Even when they failed, even when they strayed, the salt remained. It's humbling, isn't it? To know that the Creator of heaven and earth would bind himself to us. That he would choose something as simple as salt to show us something so divine. He could have used thunder. He could have carved his covenant into the stars. But he used salt. Why? Because salt is daily. Salt is present. Salt is necessary. Just like his mercy. Just like his grace. You don't think about salt until it's missing. And you don't always notice God until you're desperate. But he's been there, quiet, faithful, woven into every part of your life. In every meal. In every tear. In every moment when you thought you wouldn't make it, but somehow you did. That was covenant. That was him keeping his promise. And let me tell you something. Sugar, covenant cuts both ways. If God is faithful to us, then we are called to be faithful to him. This is not a one-sided romance. This is a sacred bond. So the question is not just, will God keep his promise? The question is, will you keep yours? Will you serve him when the blessings stop flowing like honey and start feeling more like drought? Will you pray when the heavens go quiet? Will you trust when the road grows rough? That's covenant. It's easy to be loyal when life is sweet. But salt, baby, salt shows up when sweetness has run out. Salt remains when sugar melts away. That's the kind of faith God desires. Not a fair weather faith, but a salt covenant, steady, preserving, strong. So don't bring God your leftovers. Don't treat him like a side dish, something to sprinkle on when you're desperate. Give him your whole heart, your whole life. Not just your Sundays, not just your public praise. Give him your Monday mornings, your tired nights, your quiet disappointments. That's the salt covenant. And when you stumble, and you will, when you forget, when you fail to love him the way he deserves, don't run from him. Run to him. Because his salt covenant is still active. His promise is still binding. His mercy is still enough. Remember Lot's wife. Oh yes, she became a pillar of salt. Not because she was evil, but because she looked back. She turned toward what God told her to leave behind. And the salt that should have preserved her destiny became a monument to her disobedience. Let that not be our story. Let us be salt that blesses, not salt that hardens. Salt is also used to heal. In ancient times, salt was placed on wounds, not to comfort, but to cleanse. So don't fear the sting, my dear. Sometimes God's covenant love will hurt before it heals. Sometimes he will break what you thought you needed to give you what you truly need. He is not cruel. He is committed. And in your relationships, with your family, with your friends, with your community, model this covenant love. Don't love people based on their performance. Love them based on your promise. Love them like God loves you, salty and strong. Because the world doesn't need more sugar-coated believers. It needs salt of the earth's saints. It needs people who mean what they say and say what they mean. People who don't quit when it gets hard. People who don't break their vows. People who know that sacred promises require sacred living. So hold on to your covenant. Cherish it. Protect it. And above all, live it. You are the salt of the earth. Not just a flavor. Not just a function, but a living, breathing, walking testament to a God who keeps his promises. You are his, and he is yours forever. There are things in this world, child, that are meant to last, not because they are strong in and of themselves, but because they are touched by something holy, preserved, covered, held together by an invisible grace that keeps them slipping into decay. And that grace, that holy touch, is salt. Salt has a way of stepping into the spoiling places of life and saying, "Eh no, not today. It has a voice, a presence that whispers over the rot and ruin and commands time to slow down. It enters the place of death and declares life. Long before there were refrigerators or preservatives in jars, before plastic wrap and deep freezes, there was salt. God, in his wisdom, gave humanity a mineral that could keep fish fresh and meat from molding. And when we read the scriptures, we begin to see that God uses salt not just for bodies but for souls. You see, baby, we are prone to perish. We are fragile creatures walking through a world that wants to break us, spoil us, wear us down until we are nothing but dust and despair. The lies of the enemy come like mildew, quiet, creeping until they consume. But God, in his great mercy, steps in with salt. Not just the salt you sprinkle on your plate, no, but the salt of his word, the salt of his spirit, the salt of truth spoken when the heart is weary, the salt of correction given when the soul is drifting. Salt does not ask permission to preserve. It just does what it was made to do, and so does God. He comes to preserve what would otherwise be lost. He steps into families falling apart and says, "Peace, be still." He moves into minds consumed with fear and depression and gently reminds them, "I have not given you a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind." That's preservation. That is why, when Jesus looked at his disciples and said, "You are the salt of the earth," he wasn't giving them a compliment. He was giving them a charge, a holy mission, a call to hold back the decay of this world with their love, their light, and their loyalty to God. Because, child, if we don't preserve righteousness, who will? The world is quick to celebrate what should be condemned and forget what should be remembered. But the people of God, we are called to preserve truth, preserve dignity, preserve decency, preserve grace. Salt may not shout, but it never goes unnoticed. Oh, let me tell you, it doesn't take much. Just a little salt changes everything. Just a kind word spoken in a bitter moment. Just one act of compassion in a cruel world. Just one person refusing to gossip, refusing to hate, refusing to give up. Just one person who says, "I will not let this moment rot. I will preserve the goodness here. I will hold on to what is holy." That's salt. And that's what God is asking of you. Because, beloved, you don't have to be rich or famous to be powerful. You don't have to be loud to be effective. All you have to do is be willing to stand in the gap, willing to preserve joy when sorrow is easier, willing to preserve love when it would be simpler to walk away. Think of the women in your life who kept families together, not with grand speeches, but with seasoned wisdom. They salted their children's lives with prayer. They salted their homes with laughter and truth. They preserved marriages, friendships, and dreams. Not by might, not by perfection, but by showing up with faith that refused to rot. Now, don't get me wrong, salt will sting a wound. But sometimes, baby, we need to feel the sting. We need to be reminded that something is healing. Because salt doesn't just preserve the good, it drives out the bad. It says, "This infection cannot stay. This corruption cannot grow here." So when God speaks truth into your life, when he corrects you, when he convicts you, don't resist it. Embrace the sting. Embrace the preservation. For he is keeping you from spoiling. He is keeping your soul from drifting into places you were never meant to go. He is preserving your purpose. And yes, the world will call you foolish. They'll say, "Why hold on to God when everything around you is falling apart?" But what they don't know is that you are being kept, preserved, hidden under the wings of a mighty Savior who seasons your days with grace and shields your life with favor. Your joy, preserved. Your peace, preserved. Your future, preserved. When the storms come, and they will, when life begins to smell like disappointment and your dreams feel like they've gone sour, you remember salt still works. God still preserves. And what he has called you to do, he will preserve in you until it is finished. There will be days when the world makes you feel like you're wasting your time trying to do right. There will be nights when your integrity feels like a burden. But hold on, child, you are salt. You are the preserver. You are the difference between decay and deliverance. And when your children rise up one day and speak of your name, let them say, Mama preserved us. Let your friends say, he stood when others bowed. Let your life be the kind that keeps others from spoiling in the heat of this hard world. Not because you were perfect. Not because you never cried or stumbled, but because you carried the salt of the Lord. And you used it, not to boast but to bless. Not to shine, but to season. Not to impress, but to preserve. And God will look down on you with all his heavenly glory and say, well done, my faithful salt of the earth. You kept what mattered most. And now it is your time to rest in my eternal preservation. When a wound opens on the skin, it stings. Oh yes, it burns. It lets you know something has been broken, torn, violated. And long before we ever had ointments and antiseptics, God had already placed healing in the earth. He called it salt. Salt, that common grain we walk past without second thought. Salt, that white dust we sprinkle without reverence. Salt. It knows how to heal what hurts. Now, don't mistake me. Healing with salt is not always gentle. It is not always soft. But it is always holy. The old mothers knew. You cut your finger on a tin can or a blade that had no business being where it was, and they tell you, put salt on it, baby. It'll burn, but it'll clean it out. And you'd flinch and fight and maybe even cry, but when the morning came, that wound was drying. It was closing. It was healing. Salt was doing what it was born to dog restore. It's strange, isn't it, how something can hurt you just enough to help you. God does that too. He is not always the sugar in your tea. Sometimes he is the salt on your skin. Sometimes he allows the sting so that infection won't set in. He lets life rub you raw so the healing can go deeper than the surface. He pulls the bandage off your soul, not to shame you, but to save you. You see, baby, salt gets into the places that other things cannot reach. It penetrates the hidden layers, the bruised places, the quiet corners of your heart where bitterness was beginning to brew. And when it gets there, when the salt of the word, the salt of wisdom, the salt of grace settles in, oh, healing begins. We all carry wounds. Yes, we do. Don't let fancy dresses and church hats fool you. We are all wounded in some way. Wounded by words that cut us like glass. Wounded by people who should have stayed but walked away. Wounded by choices we regret and chances we never took. But God, in his mercy, brings the salt. He brings truth, child. And truth will heal you if you let it. The kind of truth that makes you sit down and weep. The kind that breaks the chain of lies wrapped around your identity. The kind that tells you, you are not what happened to you. You are not what they said. You are still mine. That is a healing salt. When Jesus spoke, he salted the earth with healing. He touched lepers, the ones everyone else avoided, and with a single word, the disease had to flee. He spoke to blind men and deaf men and lame men, and suddenly what was broken began to mend, not because he used magic, not because he used medicine, but because he was the salt that restores. And when he ascended, he didn't take that salt with him. No, beloved, he left it in us. So we, too, must be healing agents in this aging world. We, too, must look upon the wounded and not turn away. We must carry salt in our speech, kind and wise and steady. We must carry salt in our love, not shallow, not selfish, but deep and healing. We must walk into rooms where hearts are heavy and say, I may not have all the answers, but I've got salt, and I will not let you bleed alone. Because healing isn't always about miracles. Sometimes it's about presence. It's about staying when it would be easier to walk away. It's about telling your sister she's beautiful when the world has called her ugly. It's about speaking dignity back into a man who's lost his way. It's about taking broken people into your arms and refusing to let their wounds define them. That's salt. That's sacred. That's God. And don't forget, child, healing isn't always for someone else. Sometimes the salt must come for you. Sometimes the word cuts. Sometimes the Spirit convicts. And you find yourself face to face with your own mess. You find yourself trembling under the weight of grace you know you didn't earn. That's healing, too. There's a moment in every believer's life when God begins to scrub, not to punish, but to prepare. He brings salt to the wounds you've hidden under pride. He brings salt to the parts of you that you swore no one would ever touch. And when he does, don't pull away. Don't harden. Let him do the holy work. Let him cleanse what life has contaminated. Let him purge the bitterness. Let him wash away the shame. Because you cannot walk fully into your destiny while limping from untreated wounds. You cannot rise if you're still rotting. So let him salt you. Let him speak to your disappointment. Let him lay his hands on your fear. Let him anoint the dry and cracked places of your heart until joy begins to bloom again, until peace flows like oil down your soul, until you remember that you were never forgotten, never forsaken, only being healed. And when he finishes his work, when your tears have turned into testimony, turn around and find someone else who's wounded. Don't wait for them to look perfect. Don't wait for them to get it together. Pour the salt of your story into their open wounds. Show them that God still heals. Show them that restoration is real, because that is what it means to carry salt. Not just to season, but to save. Not just to flavor, but to fix. Not just to bless, but to bind up the broken. Let your salt be the reason someone believes again. Let your salt be the thing that turns a dying heart toward hope. Let your salt be healing in a world that only knows how to harm. And one day, when you stand before the Father, when all the scars and bruises of this life fall away, may he look upon you with eyes full of fire and say, "Well done, you healed. You helped. You salted this world in my name. And oh, what a glorious day that will be." A covenant is not a contract, child. A contract can be signed and broken, made and forgotten. A contract is a thing of law. But a covenant is a thing of the heart. It is forged in fire, sealed in sacrifice, and carried in the marrow of our bones. And when God chose salt to symbolize covenant, he did not choose lightly. No, he chose salt because salt does not spoil, it does not fade, and it does not lie. Salt keeps its word. You see, in ancient times, when people wanted to seal an agreement, they did not shake hands or sign paper. No, they shared salt. They would eat together, bread with salt between them, and that moment meant something. It meant, I will not betray you. It meant, you are now bound to me and I to you. Salt said what the tongue sometimes could not. Salt was the silent witness between souls. And God, who sees the end from the beginning, who knew that we would need something unchanging in a world full of broken promises. God chose salt to remind us that he never forgets his word. He never abandons his people. He never walks away when the road grows rough. He is the God of covenant, and his covenant is kept with salt. He made one with Noah, and he painted it in the rainbow. He made one with Abraham, and he etched it in the stars. He made one with Moses, and he carved it into stone. But when he made a new covenant with us, when he brought us back to himself through the blood of his Son, he made it eternal. He made it unshakable. He made it salty. And don't you think for a moment that salt is a casual thing. No, sugar is casual. Sugar is sweet on the tongue but quick to disappear. Salt, though, salt stays. It lingers. It preserves. It says, I'm not going anywhere. That's what loyalty sounds like. We live in a world that's forgotten covenant. We live in a time where people love you today and leave you tomorrow, where marriages last months and friendships fall apart at the first disagreement. where church folks can sing Amazing Grace on Sunday and curse you with gossip by Tuesday. But God, oh, God is not like man. He is faithful when we are faithless. He is steadfast when we are shaking. His love, child, is seasoned with salt. Salt is the whisper of loyalty in a loud and flaky world. Now you, too, were meant to be salty, not petty, not bitter, not harsh, but salty, faithful, grounded, loyal. You were made to reflect God's kind of love, the kind that sticks through storms, the kind that remembers promises, the kind that shows up, not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard. Covenant calls for character. Loyalty demands more than feelings. To love with salt is to love without expiration. It is to show up for your sister when her world is falling apart and still be there when the crowd has gone home. It is to forgive your brother, not 7 times, but 70 times 7. It is to love your spouse, not just when they are lovely, but when they are low. It is to walk beside God, even when the path is dark and the answers are few, because your soul remembers the salt. Your spirit remembers the covenant. Do you recall when Jesus told us, "You are the salt of the earth"? He wasn't just talking about being different. He was saying, "You are my covenant people. You are my loyalty in a faithless land. You are the ones who stay when others walk away. You are the flavor of heaven in a tasteless world." But he also gave a warning, didn't he? He said, "If the salt loses its savor, it is good for nothing." Oh, that line pierces me, because it tells me that it's possible to talk like salt, wear the title of Christian, but have no flavor, no loyalty, no covenant at all. So we must ask ourselves, am I salty enough to stay loyal when I'm not applauded? Am I salty enough to keep my word when no one's watching? Am I salty enough to love people who cannot repay me? Am I salty enough to remain faithful to God even when He says wait? Salt without savor is like love without action. It makes a sound, but it don't move nothing. Let your love be salty. Child, let your heart be seasoned with loyalty. In your friendships, in your family, in your ministry, in your daily walk with God, be someone who can be counted on. Be someone who keeps covenant, because the world is starving. Starving for people who mean what they say. Starving for love that doesn't quit. Starving for men and women who won't run when things fall apart. They are starving for salt. Be that salt. And remember this. Salt is humble. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't shout its presence. It simply gets into everything and changes it quietly. That's loyalty. It doesn't boast. It doesn't ask for a parade. It just shows up every day and does what it was made to do. So stay salty, my dear. Not trendy. Not trendy in faith, flipping between beliefs and preachers like channels on a TV. Stay salty. Not fickle in love. Not loud in pride, but seasoned in grace, anchored in covenant. Stay salty in your prayers, salty in your promises, salty in your praise. Let your life remind the world that when God says, "I will never leave you nor forsake you," He meant it. Let your life reflect a love that doesn't evaporate in heat. Let your life taste like the kind of faith that endures, because in a world that forgets so easily, salt remembers. Salt remembers the vow. Salt remembers the cross. Salt remembers the empty tomb. Salt remembers that the one who started a good work in you, He will finish it. He will keep His covenant. He will be loyal until the end. And baby, if you stay salty, so will you.